The Cross'em Wrestling Entertainment Podcast, presented by Clovercrest Media, is what you AEW fans have been looking for. Noah Cross and Tyler Bard give their take on every week's episode of Dynamite. If you are a massive AEW fan, then it is time to join us every Sunday at noon Eastern Standard Time. Stay Cross'em.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Throwing Jabs Podcast. I'm Big Jace, joined by my man Jared Jones and Big Joe Guire. Now, let's talk about the big fights this weekend. We had a bunch from starting off. Josh Taylor knocks out Apanun Khansong with a vicious body shot in the first round to retain the WBA and IBF junior welterweight belts. Jared, what'd you think of the fight?
I promised I wasn't going to take this fight seriously. Couple seconds in, Josh Taylor lands a left hook to the body. Devastated. The type of punch nobody wants to get hit with. Like, people will prove they're a tough guy by getting hit in the head, but nobody wants to get hit with a punch like that.
Yeah.
And
no one's like, here, pop me in the liver.
Yeah.
I'll show you what I can do. I'll show you how much of a man I am.
Aim for that floating rib right there. So that being said, I had told you that there was a director that wanted the gorilla to sing from the top of the Empire State Building, and the producer said, let's put a pin in Kong song. So taking first that I'm not going to take this seriously, I wrote a poem about it. I did. So I'm going to read it real slow, and then I'm going to read it real fast. It's Kong Song. I can't refrain. You lost verse, Taylor. Got tuned up. It was a short ditty, a shanty performance, difficult to carol about at all. Some people are saying you ballad out, but you didn't. Saying you were all that anthem, but you weren't. My final thought on Kong Song, I don't know about him. I give him a mellow D-. Thanks.
Oh, that's great.
Oh my
Kong
gosh.
Song.
I love it.
But I think this fight sets up, everyone's talking about Josh Taylor versus Jose Ramirez. What do you think of that fight?
For me, far and away, when you look at this weight division, the number 3 guy in the weight class is Regis Prograis. Taylor beat Prograis before this last little joke. So those are the last 2 guys left. We talked about this in one of our very first shows, this weight division, and how we're going to go from 5 to 1. And these 2 fight, we will have one. And I believe that one is Josh Taylor.
Josh Taylor was outstanding. This fight was great to watch. I really enjoyed it. And I think I hope people are aware of Josh Taylor now. And I'm still not sure people are. But I mentioned Bud Crawford as him stepping up and going to Bud Crawford, because I think that's a good fight. I think that would be a fight Bud Crawford deserves. That would be a really good opponent for him. It would be a great fight. I think a fight of the year fight. Here's the interesting thing. Both Josh Taylor and Bud Crawford have beaten Victor Pastal, and Ramirez beat Pastal, but it was a majority decision. Some say he lost that fight. So I think Taylor outclasses Ramirez easily in a fight. I think it's a waste of time. Here's what I'd like to see. I would like to see Taylor come to the U.S. I think he's got to move up to welterweight. He's, like I said, great fighter, okay? Maybe Mikey Garcia, maybe Sean Porter, even Errol Spence, who I think he would destroy in a fight. I think he would beat the daylights out. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's how good Josh Taylor is. I'm telling you, the Bud Crawford Josh Taylor matchup, whenever that ends up being, is going to be a fight of the year. Whether it's next year, year after that, it's going to happen. That's the right fight for this division right now.
I think
that's
you
the
introduced you introduced the problem with that when you started and said, I hope people know about Josh Taylor. They don't. And the Crawford fight just isn't in his best interest. I agree with everything you said, except for the fact that it won't bring Taylor the type of money he's looking for, because he doesn't have the name for that Crawford fight. Is he building a name? Yeah. Is he beating great fighters? Yeah. But, you know, unless you can get Floyd to fight somebody that can actually fight, or, you know, Taylor puts Floyd on his resume, hell yeah, go up and fight Bud Crawford. But right now, for the dollars, it don't make sense.
Well, if he can get past Jose Ramirez, I don't see anywhere else for him to go but up.
Yeah,
like, I think Joe
Let's
is
start with
looking
Porter.
multiple fights in the future, but I think this can happen. So
you like Taylor, Jared? You like him? You like the way he fights?
Oh yeah, that kid.
I think he's something really special. Good. I really do.
Very, very. When I say it reminds me of Loma, it's the greatest compliment I could give you currently in boxing is that you look a little bit like Loma, and that's kind of what I think of Taylor. So I'd like to see him beat Ramirez first, because there's another undefeated guy in his weight class. You know, I get that we all think he'll beat this guy, but beat that last guy. If I'm undefeated and there's an undefeated champion and nobody else in the weight class is undefeated, and you move up before you fight me, man, don't go on your Twitter account for 18 months. Because I'm going to name drop you every day to let you know that you ran to get away from me. But Turbiev should be doing it to Canelo right now. You went down to get away from me. Boogity, 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 boogity.
Love it. Love it.
Now let's talk about the Charlos. Jermell Charlo knocks out Jensen Rosario in the 8th round to retain IBF, WBC, and WBA junior middleweight championships. Jared, what'd you think?
Good fight. Fought a tough guy, knocked him out. Listen, I'm going to say two things that seem like they contradict each other, but currently they do not. I think I underestimated these Charlo brothers, and I think they're slightly overrated.
Okay.
They're better than I thought they would be, but not as good as everybody else thinks they are. And you look at the record, you look at the numbers, there's nothing besides the eye test that gives me any evidence that I'm right. It's just a gut feeling that when these guys get in there with the guys you want them to fight, there might be problems. That being said, Jermell looked better than Jamal.
You know, Jared and I actually talked about this on the phone a couple days ago. I didn't like how this fight ended. Rosario was outlanding Charlo, and I will say Jermell hit him with a couple of overhand rights that absolutely took Rosario's legs out. But the last punch that he threw was a jab to the stomach, not the solar plex, the stomach. And that's what literally floored Rosario. And apparently he started hyperventilating. Not from the punch. My thought is I think he knew, you know, he was taking damage. He'd been hit a lot less than he'd hit and had taken a lot more damage. I think he was in a fight he knew he couldn't win. I think he fell to his back and thought, I ain't getting up. And I think that's why he hyperventilated, because I'll say this. I think Jermell fought a good fight. I was going to say I think he fought better than Jermall, but I'm not sure that I feel like I could say that now. Because I think definitely Jermall fought a better fight and I think beat a better opponent. Yeah, yes. A much better opponent. And we'll talk about him in a second, because I didn't think he was going to win, I said. I didn't think he was going to win, and I was afraid that he may have taken Derbyachenko a little lightly, and he definitely didn't. And we've seen other guys. I mentioned last time, Triple G and Jacobs both took him lightly, and both barely walked out with a victory. So I think Jermall knew what he was up against, and I think he took Sergey very seriously, and he dismantled him. And I was blown away by the quality fight he fought.
We gotta put these guys on opposite ends of the show, Jermell and Jermall, so we keep track who we're talking about. But I loved the Jermell fight because it gives me an opportunity to go back to what I was saying last week about those two female fighters. and how fighters need someone to get in there and save them from themselves. The article I wrote. And the why was for all of the obvious safety reasons, and because you don't want a fighter doing it himself. Because when you see a guy that's getting hit with the hard shots, his legs are gone, he falls down, the average human being has no concept of what it takes when you know you're losing, you know you're going to lose, you're not getting any ends against the guy, and you get up and keep fighting. You get off the stool and go to another round. You asked the average boxing fan who the blood and guts warrior of boxing history is, they're going to say Arturo Gatti. Now, Gatti walked back, I don't know if it was the 5th or 6th round, he walked back to his stool with Floyd Mayweather and cried. Sat down on his stool and cried. The average human being doesn't understand what it takes. So when I saw, and yeah, I said this to Joe when we talked about it, when I saw Rosario fall, I thought, that's that mental game. That's why we love Arturo Gatti, because not everybody has that. And the general population, almost nobody does. When you're getting beat up like that, you go away. So I thought, yeah, Rosario was a little bit outclassed. He did well, though. Both of those opponents fought well.
Yeah, and like Derevianchenko, I do think Jermell looked more vicious. Like what Joe said, he was getting outstruck, but he was landing more damaging shots. But when you do bring in the skill factor of the other opponent, I think Jermall came out here ahead of everyone else. And I have a question. Do you think Jermall can compete with the upper guys at middleweight, the Triple Gs, the Canelos, the Andrades? Do you think he can compete with those guys, Jared?
No. If Trump getting coronavirus taught us anything, it's that even the Secret Service can't protect you from yourself. No, he can't fight with those guys. He's not ready. When I say these guys are slightly overrated, this is what I mean. Triple G, Canelo. I think he should start with Andrade because they're both like guys we don't know about. But inside the numbers, Derevianchenko fight. Derevianchenko threw 54 more. Charlo landed 39 more. But power shots, Derevianchenko threw 179 more and landed 29 more. While jabs, Charlo landed 125 more, landed 68 more. So one of the guys threw, 180 more power punches. The other guy threw 125 more jabs. Do I believe those power punches were way more effective and gave Derevianchenko the fight? No. But I believe those Hagler beat Leonard fans might come at this fight and say there was an aggressor, there was a power punching guy. He was the general, ring generalships. He was leading the way. I don't believe that. I'm saying an argument can be made. And if you're making an argument with Derevianchenko, Triple G and Canelo? No way, dude. The Charlo would be in over his head with all three of those guys.
All right. Here's what I think. I think Canelo's out of his class completely. I think he could brawl with Triple G. Probably wouldn't win, but
Charlo,
Triple G can. Talking about Charlo.
Charlo,
yep. Yeah. Charlo can compete with Triple G. They're brawling out. Triple G could be sloppy at times. That would be his best bet in that fight. I think those two are probably out of his league, though. I agree with you. I think Andrade, or like I said, I think Danny Jacobs would be a worthwhile fight for him. Again, somebody who I think matches up a little bit better. Show you could beat one of those guys, and then we'll talk about Canelo or Triple G.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like the Andrade fight for him. I think Andrade is the boogeyman of this division right now. I don't think anyone wants to fight him. Gold medalist. I think this dude is legit, and I like the Jacobs fight, but I think if Charlo's smart, he goes after a Triple G and or Canelo and gets his payday before he fights Andrade. But
I agree with that. And make the dollars make sense. I totally agree with that because Andre, that's scary.
Yeah, I think he's
you
the
don't know
boogeyman.
yet. I've seen both of those other guys lose. I've seen both those other guys touched. I could draw up a blueprint for how to beat Triple G or Canelo in a way that I couldn't necessarily do with Andre because I wouldn't be sure. I never saw anybody implement it before.
All right. Now let's talk some UFC. Israel Adesanya knocks off Paulo Costa. The young undefeateds knock each other off as to retain his UFC middleweight championship fight. I'll be the first to say I picked Costa and I was wrong.
You picked the Giants too, buddy. We still love you.
Yeah. What'd you think of the fight, Jared? What'd you think of it?
This is that guy, man. This is that guy. Now, when my wife and I started dating, Chris Weidman and Anderson Silva fought, and it was that gruesome Anderson Silva broke his leg. She decided to root for Weidman, you know, mostly because I was like, this Silva guy is like one of the greatest fighters. Like, you don't understand what this guy's done for the sport. He is that guy. Anderson Silva is that guy. When Chris Weidman beat him, I said, with all due respect, this is not the guy. This is the guy who beat the guy. He's not going to win 10, 15 title fights. He's going to disappear into obscurity in 2 or 3 years. I was right about that. When I say this is the guy, it's not the guy with the belt. It's not the guy who won his last fight. It's not the guy that beat the guy. This is one of the greatest fighters we have on the planet right now. And he put himself on the map and in the argument with the number one pound for pounds in the world. I think we all have the same guy right now, right?
I think we do.
Pound for pound number one.
Should we all say it at the same time to make sure? I'll go first. Khabib?
Yeah, Khabib. Yeah, but
I think we're all
Khabib. Is Adesanya up there with Khabib? Yeah, that's the argument for me right now. Is he the best in the weight class? Will he wreck anybody else you put him in there with? Is it pound for pound? Is this the best fighter in the world?
Well, I tell you this, he might very well be the most popular, and I think this fight achieved him superstar status. It like you said, not just in the division, but across the sport. Do you know that the weigh-in, the stare down, was the most watched or downloaded video in UFC's history? And it beat the previous best.
Wow.
It beat the previous best by 1 million. So people were very excited about this fight, which went exactly the way I said it was going to go. And outside of a couple of nice leg kicks from Costa, which I wasn't expecting, he continues to use his jiu-jitsu black belt just to hold up his pants. And I'll never understand why you have this amazing skill. You just don't want to use it. But Adesanya is the man in this division. And here's the other thing. Look, he's beaten Whitaker. He's beaten Romero. He's beaten Silva, as you mentioned, Gastelum. He's beaten everybody that matters in this division. I know he says he wants Jared Cannonier, who's got a fight coming up with Whitaker that he needs to win. Adesanya said, that's the guy who I'd like to beat next. But if he doesn't beat Whitaker, I'd be happy to beat Whitaker again. So there you go.
That's where we are. That's where
we're at.
He's cleaned out the division.
He sure has.
Real. He's one step away from the Bum of the Month Club.
Yeah.
That Ali used to talk about.
Yeah.
You know, I'll fight once a month and you can give me anybody you want.
Yeah. And
this
then
guy's ferocious.
He is really good. The one, like, I need to stop holding the Gaslam fight against him because that was a brawl. He won that, but he did not. You saw the big, like, welt on his mouth. Like, that was a brawl. I need to stop holding that against him. I picked Romero to beat him. Now I picked Costa to beat him. He played this so smart. The leg kicks, just making it a kicking battle because Costa has that power with his punches. So Adesanya did everything he needed to do to win.
Well, and styles make fights. When you're harder on a guy after a fight like that, you got to remember that stylistically, some guys are just tougher than others. I was knocked out once at Scrubs. 34-2. Well, I was knocked out one time. 34-2-2. Shout out to the draws, I guess. One of those 2 losses was by knockout. I caught a body shot, left-handed kid. By the way, all of those blemishes are left-handed people. Don't tell anybody because I don't want them to think I'm susceptible. Landed a body shot. I was on the ground making weird noises like it was bad. Buju, Justin Hayes, great fight. The kid was 3-5-1 when we fought. Styles make fights.
Oh, 100%. You know, look, when it comes to fighting, some people match up well with people that you wouldn't think that they would. And I look, any southpaw, I just think naturally, if you have any sort of skill and you're a lefty, man, you're made for fighting. You are made for fighting. And it's just, you know, again, if you're facing a righty, Jared, right? I mean, it's just you're naturally going to get hit in the face with lefts. That's just the way it's set up.
Closer hand,
yeah. So style totally matters, you know. Again, my thought about I watch Costa and I think I'm sure it's fun to stand there and go toe to toe with somebody, but at some point you've got this amazing skill, and you see people all over the sport employing it in devastating fashion, and you're like, nah, I don't want to do that. I just want to box.
You just reminded me of probably one of the worst falls from grace I've ever seen in mixed martial arts. A woman by the name of Ronda Rousey. Ronda had her opponent before a fight, Batch Correa, say something really, really nasty about her father who had committed suicide. She got pissed off. She decided, I'm going to break this girl's face, bump my jiu-jitsu, bump my arm bars, bump everything that has worked for me in the past and gotten me to this superstar status. I am going to break this girl's face. And she did. And for her career, it was the worst thing that could have happened for her, because then she thought, oh, I can just break girls' faces. Who's this Holly Holm girl? Sign her up. Sign her up. I'll break her face.
A boxer, huh? I'll box that bitch. Yeah,
I got
sure.
This. Did you see what I just did? Yeah, so I really think Batch Correa's comment was the catalyst that destroyed Rousey's career.
All right. Let's
like a Hollywood movie's got to be in the works on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about the co-main event for the UFC pay-per-view. Jan Blachowicz wins the vacant UFC light heavyweight championship by knocking out Dominic Reyes. And it sucks because the big story coming out at the tail end of this fight is John Jones vacates the belt and comes after Blachowicz. It's not that this guy won the belt and he's the first person to hold the light heavyweight belt in so long. But no, it's John Jones wants to come back because Blachowicz has the belt. What did you think of the fight in general, Jared?
Good fight. Great. I mean, this Blachowicz looks good, man. How does he have 8 losses? How does that guy have 8 losses? That's wild. Yeah, he looked good. He surprised me. He won 8 of his last 9. Only loss was Thiago Santos. And Santos won 8 of his last 9 prior to the loss to John Jones. I think I'd watch that rematch. This light heavyweight division is tough, man. It's tough to weed out who's who, but Blachowicz looked good, man. He looked good. Skillful.
I said last week that I thought, this is the best the light heavyweight division can do. And I take that back now because it was a great fight. And Polish power, man. Whoa. This guy's, I'll tell you, the style that which he fights. And I think he's very different from a lot of other guys in that, there's not any real wind up wild throws. Everything he throws is just either a jab or and they're short and they're tight. And he just comes at you ferociously. He's got a motor on him that I guess I just didn't expect, and I didn't think I was going to see. It really was a fantastic fight, but I definitely think that you got some things going on now, and I could see where it's suddenly John Jones finds this a lot more interesting. He probably should rematch Reyes. I think everybody would like to see that one again. Pretty close fight. The more I talk to people who watch that fight, the more I'm hearing people felt like maybe Reyes did win that fight, and so that's definitely. And then again, the way Jan fought, I think John would definitely want to get his hands on Jan. The John Jan matchup, I think, would be a good one. So I think this division suddenly got kind of interesting again.
I like what you. That also brings kind of like a tinfoil hat. Like John Jones vacated the belt, and now Dominic Reyes doesn't have it, and he had that close fight with Dominic Reyes. So is he trying to duck Dominic Reyes?
This Blachowicz guy I'll fight. I thought it was going to be Reyes, but Blachowicz I'll fight. Yeah, it does have a little bit of that feel, but no, I don't think so.
Yeah, you think John Jones watched Jan beat the daylights and he was like, you know what? After that guy beat me and then he beat him, yeah, I'll take a shot. No way.
Yeah,
I think John literally finally feels like there's somebody worthy of him after the fight with Reyes and after watching these two bang it out. I think he's got to be thinking like, hey, these are good fights. These are fights people want to see. So I think that's maybe where John was at. I don't feel like he felt like there was anybody really worthy of him, and it was time to move on up. I mean, he's dominated that division for so long. I think it's good that these guys sort of stepped up and were like, hey, you know what? There's some good talent here.
Blachowicz reminded me a bit of, I trained a kid named Jordan Clark, and he's at the time 6'4.5", 325. One of the kids I actually fought at a scrub. Yeah, styles make fight. Going into that, you wouldn't have looked at the two of us and thought that it was going to be a close fight. It was. We each got an 8 count out of the other one. It was a really, really good fight. But when I was training with this kid, he was trying to pull his right hand out of his back pocket, wind it all the way over here, and then hit somebody. I'm like, you're 325 pounds, dude. What are you going to do with a punch? Are you fighting a brick wall? Like, all I want you to do is touch him. Reach out and just touch him. And at 6'4.5", 325, things will fall over if you touch them. You don't have to wind it. Don't wind them up. Just try to touch the other guy. And Blachowicz, that's what you're getting. A really big guy that all I really have to, if I touch you, you think about a 4-ounce glove and how hard you'd have to swing to knock somebody off balance when you're punching them in the mouth. Like, just make sure it's short and sharp. Gets there in a hurry. Keep them off balance. No wind-ups. Nate Diaz. There's some guys out there that employ that and look hella good doing it. Winky Wright versus Felix Trinidad. If you want to look one up, that's the one to watch. Just touch him.
All right. I also want to bring this up. We just talked about how Adesanya had basically cleared out his division. Could he make the move up to take on Blachowicz?
Ooh. You can tell he hit us with a curveball here.
Yep.
I want to say yes. How old is Adesanya? Not very, right? 27? 26? I'd like to see that. But that's as a fan. I want him to be that guy that goes, I can beat anybody. McGregor, I'll go up to heavyweight. I don't care. You know, I want my champions to be like that. Is that in his best interest? I mean, weight classes, it's tough to move up weight classes, man. That's hard. Oh, I don't know.
And also from 185 to 205, that's a big gap.
That's a big, 7 pounds in boxing, 20 pounds in UFC. That's a huge jump.
Yeah. What do you think of that potential fight, Joe?
I don't like it. I don't like it for Adesanya at all. Especially after watching the I don't know. I didn't. I don't know. I don't like it. And for him to move up, what would that look like? What would he look like?
Oh, geez.
I just don't know. I mean, he's
tall. Like he might be able to find places to put the weight. Like he's lanky. He's a tall dude. He's a big dude for.
It reminds me a little bit of what we were just saying about Jamal Charlo. Like, should he fight Triple G, Canelo, or Andrade? No, probably not, because I think he loses all 3 of those fights. But where else is he supposed to go? And that's where we are with Adesanya. Should he jump up and try to fight these bigger guys? Well, probably not. You know, put him in danger, but he's got nowhere else to go. I got no place else to go. That's it.
Yeah. We shall see. We shall see what comes from that. Now let's move on to some current events. And Dana White in a interview with Barstool Sports announces that he has offered Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier a fight. And also some DMs got leaked from Dana White and Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor wants to fight sooner rather than later. And Dana wants to put him on the 4th of July card at the end of next year. What do you guys think of this potential matchups, Jared?
Not a huge fan of either guy, I must say. I think they're both great fighters, top of the division stuff. I'd just rather have, a horse in the race. I don't root for either one of these guys. So I think I'd probably like to see McGregor win. These guys are into too much that isn't fighting. That's what it is for me at the end of the day. I want you in a basement somewhere, concentrated. I want you leaving your wife for a few months so you can go to training camp and really get it in. I don't want you pulling out your penis on the way to the bathroom at a bar. If you're a fighter and you've got a fight coming up, I kind of want you to conduct yourself a little more Rocky and a little less Dolph Lundgren when you're getting ready for the fight, shooting up and watching TV versus carrying rocks and cutting down trees and stuff. I just picture my fighters working really hard because I know when I was in the gym, I had a weight cut coming up. I got an amateur fight coming up. I'm sparring with Chad Dawson. And literally every time I ate a meal, I pictured him with an asparagus wrap. Now, I never saw him with an asparagus wrap. I don't know why it was an asparagus wrap. I just felt like that while I was having a double cheeseburger from McDonald's, that this 4-time amateur champion was probably having an asparagus wrap.
He seems like an asparagus wrap kind of guy. You're not wrong. He does.
Yeah, I should be training and eating right and doing 100% of what I do, because as soon as I'm at 99, the guy next to me is going to be given 100%, and I'm going to end up in a box with that guy someday. And he's going to be working when I was resting and eating good when I was eating crap. And when they put the two of us in a box together, he's going to kick my butt. So I better get on my grind.
I don't know what Conor McGregor is doing. I don't know what his mental state is. I don't assume that it's 100% capacity that he's dealing with. And I don't know if there's just some pre-existing situation or if this is getting hit in the head over and over again. But there's something wrong with Conor McGregor. When you think about what Dana White has done for Conor, to go and do him dirty like this, while he's off living his like crazy whirlwind life of, vacationing in Europe while also flashing his dick wherever, it might be readily available. I don't know what this guy is up to. He still insists that he wants to fight box Manny Pacquiao, which maybe Pacquiao can beat some sense into Conor McGregor. I would love to see the fight with him and Poirier, and I know he was even talking about doing an exhibition with Poirier at some point. Which, what? I was like, what are you even talking about? What are you even like? For me, I think that's probably a good fight for Conor right now to sort of like earn his way back in, because I feel like right now in that division, Conor's the odd man out. I mean, Conor basically got asked to be like, what, the fifth or sixth guy in that four-man as like the backup to the backup. That's where Conor McGregor is right now, and he doesn't understand that. Conor McGregor thinks he's still the star of that division. You're not.
When you say what's wrong with Conor McGregor, my immediate instinct is it's easy to get lost in your characters.
Yeah.
You know, be careful that you hear about it happen to actors all the time that have this weird little falling out. Will Smith after Ali. What's his name after Thinner lost all that weight. The Mechanic. Robin Williams. People get lost in their characters. It happens a lot. And I think Conor McGregor, from somebody with a psych background, this is a guy that got a little lost in his character and doesn't understand who he is anymore. And it's sad from that perspective. It's sad for him. But as fighting fans, that's sad for us.
And I don't mean to make light of mental illness in any way, shape, or form. You know, I just think at this point, Conor's behaviors become almost comical, you know, or cartoonish, where you're like, you know, if you were creating a movie about like an idiot boxer who goes off the rails, you would write the Conor McGregor story exactly the way it's going. You wouldn't need to add any of those Hollywood touches to make it more dramatized. It would be perfect if you just wrote it down right like this.
That's how it is. Yeah,
it is perfect. So I feel for Conor, man. He referenced suicide in a tweet just a few weeks ago. You mentioned Robin Williams. You know, I would hate to see that. I you know what I mean? And I guess for me, and I don't see it right now, I hope Conor gets the right kind of people around him.
Yes.
And someone can start talking sensibly to him, and maybe he can get things back on track, because look, he's not a young pup either. So if he wants to be relevant in this sport again, he's running out of time.
Yep. Well, and it is the type of thing that you could laugh or cry about, you know, because it's like somebody should jump in there and help this guy, but he's an entertainer and the shit's entertaining. So where do you draw the line from being just entertained by something on your TV to I'm a human being and that's a human being, and somebody should step in and do something to help this guy? I totally agree with you, Joe. The hope would be there's somebody close enough to him. He has somebody like I have you guys, and like you guys have me, that's going to stop him and say, you got to switch it up. Do you remember that young, hungry fighter that people liked because he wanted to be the best and not because he was some kind of sideshow freak? Exhibition fights, that's where you're headed, dude. You know, the kangaroo. Are you going to fight a kangaroo?
As soon as you said exhibition, I thought of a kangaroo fight, and then you said it, and now I'm trying not to lose my mind right now laughing, because, yeah, dude, I already had the visual on that.
Ireland versus Australia.
I've already got the cartoon playing in my head of Conor. You know,
I'll tell you what. I mean, I've always been like, I love sports, all around sports. Big sports fan. Baseball's always been my number one. And for me, baseball and boxing, there's two things that mean a lot to me, and it's to see my guys go out with dignity. It's to see Eli Manning last year at 37 admit and step aside. And you see it with boxers, especially when they get near 40. Bernard Hopkins was one of my all-time favorites. It was rough watching the way he went out. You want to see your guys step aside with grace, and I know it's hard. I know it's hard to walk away from something you've been training and doing your whole life, and it becomes a big part of your identity. But, man, there's nothing I hate to see more than a guy hit a star, hit a wall, and just Even if I don't like a person, I could take no pleasure in watching somebody's career that was a great one fall off in such spectacular fashion. I don't know. There's just something about it. You think about these guys and the work. Jared, you know this sport better than anybody here. You know the work required to do this sport. And when you get to that age where you're like, I don't know what to do anymore, and you're sort of making a mockery of all of the things you've done, and you're doing it not only to yourself but to everybody else in your sport.
Oh.
It's the legacy on Conor McGregor is not what it would have been 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think that's a shame for the sport, and it's a big shame for Conor.
We just wrapped up the two things. Man, you just made me emotional, Joe. We just wrapped up the two things we were talking about and reminded me of me having somebody close enough to me that was going to step in into, my boy, Chris, Joe Dizzle. Oh, and he's in the CMG league now, Jace. Yeah, so you guys both know who I'm talking about. I was talking about a Jordan kid that I fought that was 6'4.5", 325. In the first round, about 30 seconds in, I tried to shade under a right hand and didn't, and he clipped me right behind the ear with a big right hand. I did a full squat, butt didn't hit the ground, stood back up, was waiting for my 8 count, didn't get one, butt didn't hit the ground, didn't qualify as a knockdown. If this kid was into hurting his friends, like it was a really, really dangerous situation. I ended up coming back, got my wits about me, ended up winning the fight. Dizzle pulls me aside afterward and goes, you have to take your spot as a fighter and move it now to matchmaker, promoter, all of the other things that you do. You could have been unconscious in front of your 8-year-old and your dad and sisters, your wife, your friends. You could have lost your consciousness and had everybody stand around watching while we try to restore it. When you say it's tough for somebody that's done that their whole life, that always wants to see if I can take the next guy. Can I take that next step? When you say Adesanya, move up, I go, oh, but the 20-something me wants to know. I want to know, So it's tough being 42 and not having that and being, I'm a half step slower. I'm all of those things and just don't belong with a kid 20 years younger than me, 150 pounds bigger than me, and a half a foot taller. It was a dangerous situation, so, and had that person, like I said, we just wrapped up both of those conversations because it was the person close, and it's what Conor McGregor needs. Here's how we realign this. Nice to have somebody close enough to you to do that, but so hard to John Elway. So hard to just reach that point and go, this is my top. This is as good as I'm going to be, and it's time to walk away. That's very, very difficult.
I've always wished that Roy Jones Jr. had retired in 2003. Had that been the case, we'd be talking about him in the top 3 of all time. Easily. That's where he would be. And he couldn't do it. He couldn't stop. He couldn't do it. And I think he regrets it a lot now.
Well, Mayweather is in the same shape with kickboxers and Conor McGregor and stuff. And it's like, Tyson did that too. Your legacy as a great fighter is being tarnished by what you're doing here. Ali and Holmes is my hardest one. And I wasn't even, I might have been 1 year old, but going back through boxing history, that's one of the ones I ran into and watched that I was like, wow, dude, he's a shell. He's a shadow of who he was, and you're getting beat up by a guy that you could have beat years ago. 5-10 years prior, that right hand from Jordan doesn't land. I'm able to get under it in time. And that's the difference that you're talking about. And yeah, when it's time to go, man, it's hard. It's hard, but you don't want to, get waked up, getting my consciousness restored in front of my 8-year-old. The idea that I was a few pounds of pressure from that happening was enough. I got to be careful. If I pick fights, I got to be careful, and kickboxers and McGregor's and younger that I'm able to control the fight more. You know, you've got to pick and choose. And that's not what we want from our fighters. Picking and choosing. Just fight the next best guy. Get in there. So this game isn't for old folk, you know. I also think there's a mental transition when we grow up from fighting. And I think it happens in rap too. I also rap a bit, and both of them kind of fell off at the same time. I realized that, you know, whether you believe in a higher power or not, that if I'm ever to answer for myself, and I have to say, I'm really good at physical and verbal assault. If you've got a battle rap going on and need me to talk trash about somebody, I will make them feel this big. I'm really good at verbal abuse and physical abuse too. I'm kind of a stud. So if you need somebody beat up in heaven, like, I'm ready to go. I don't think that those are the two things when I get to the end that I want to look back on and be proud about. You know what I'm saying? At some point in your life, that biggest, baddest, toughest guy is not what you're aiming for as much. You know, and I definitely hit a wall mentally with both of those activities.
The great Rocky Marciano, after his fight with Archie Moore, wasn't a great fight for him. He opened a gym and walked away. He didn't want to. That's why he's 49-0. And that's why when we talk about the greatest of all time, we talk about that guy. He had a sore back at that point. He knew what was coming. He knew if he continued, trouble. So he was smart enough to walk away, and he's the standard with which I think most of these guys look at. You know, he saw Joe Louis come back and get destroyed. He knew. And it's so hard. It's so hard. It's got to be so hard. I mean, I play in a stupid wiffle ball league because my love of baseball, Jared's on my team, by the way. You know how, I mean, Jared, who plays harder than me in this stupid wiffle ball league that we're in?
You would not believe this guy diving on the ground. I may have dove twice in the 3 years we've been playing. This guy dives twice a game. Literally,
I dive into fences.
I dive into fences. Get injured. When you see guys, no disrespect at all, Joe, his size, moving around, diving on the ground, slamming into shit, you think that guy's gonna get hurt, dude. But season after season, Joe goes out.
It's funny. It's funny.
Force. He's getting after it. He will take an injury to catch the wiffle ball if that's what it takes. I love this guy.
Every time I make a diving catch, and I'm a big dude. I'm about 250. All right. And I'm not, when I run, I know it's not graceful. I often say I look like the backpack of like a group of antelopes. There's always like the old fat one. And the lions they're just like, antelopes, go. We're just going to get your fat buddy here when you're all done. That's me.
His feet start going before the rest of his body.
He's not joking. I have to, or I'll never get moving. But every time I dive and make some spectacular catch, immediately everybody's like, are you all right? They assume I'm not getting up from that, but it's hard, man. It's because it's the thing. I remember when my baseball career ended at 19 years old, and that was hard for me. And I started playing softball. I didn't want to play softball, but you have to eventually. 10 years later, I started playing softball, and it just didn't do it for me because it wasn't baseball. They're lobbing the ball, and it wasn't the same thing. And then we got this league, Jared, and so people know in this wiffle ball league, there's guys that throw 70 miles an hour. And if you think I'm joking, we've got video to show you. And I mean, it's a tough league. It's a hard league to hit it. And I'm proud to say Jared and I and his brother Joel are amongst the league leading hitters because of our hard work. But I needed something like that, Jared. I needed something like that to satisfy that desire I've always had to be a baseball player. And it's why I play like it's why I'm out there like playing like a young superstar in the MLB with total reckless regard for my body. And it's funny, we play Sunday nights. We had our last game last Sunday. I am still sore as can be. And it's been a week.
I think what you were just saying is part of why you were so drawn to scrub scraps in the beginning. You know, it was this thing that really excited you because even though your boxing experience might be minimal, you can relate to what that means for the people that do need it. For the, you know, the even the podcasting group kind of fits that mold of, man, these are the things that make you happy. Group collaboration, setting goals. These are like where happiness comes from. You know, this is where we get the tools to troubleshoot life, is from things like the Wiffle Ball League, the podcasting group, Scrub Scraps, these things where we bring together. And those in particular, you know, Wiffle Ball, you get your baseball players, but this one, man, the podcasting and Scrub Scraps, you get all different types that want to do all different kinds of things. And it to like there's nothing more rewarding in my life than creating that kind of place for people that need it.
Yep. Yeah. Let's move on to the recap. Preview of tonight's fights live on ESPN Plus from UFC's Fight Island. Former women's bantamweight champ Holly Holm takes on up-and-coming 6th-ranked fighter Irene Aldana. Jared, what do you think?
I'm not the one to ask about this because I'm gonna not care about who the better fighter is. I am just a really huge Holly Holm fan. I'm sure you guys probably could have guessed that. That being said, she's up against it here, man. This is, if she's gonna make another run at this thing, it's a must win. The girl's number 6. 2 weeks from today is Holly Holm's 39th birthday. Might be running into that other thing we were just talking about. She's won 5 of her last 10. Doesn't sound very good. I'm going to give you those 10 names right now just for fun, though. Amanda Nunes, Jermaine Durandamine, Batch Correa, Marion Renault, Megan Anderson, Cyborg, Valentina Shevchenko, Raquel Pennington, Misha Tate, Ronda Rousey. Anybody that goes 5-5 in that little gauntlet, I don't care who you are. That is world class. Those are her last 10 fights, dude. We recognize every one of those names. They've all held belts in different organizations. It's the who's who of women's fighting right now is her last 10 fights. And she's 5-5. She wins this one, though. Can you help but give her another shot?
You know, and only Amanda Nunes knocked her out. So throw that one out the window because Amanda Nunes knocks everybody out. It's in a league of her own, honestly, right? I mean, she's in a league of her own. I think if you look at all those other fights, Jared, you know, she was in those fights and nobody knocked her out. And I would say, you know, Jared and I talked, was it yesterday, Jared? It might have been yesterday even.
Before, maybe, yeah.
You know, we were banging out a fantasy football trade, Jared and I, like 2 GMs banging it out on the phone for like 30 minutes. We walked our way through it. But look, here's the thing. Holly Holm, and you know, Jared, I'm like you. I'm a big fan of Holly Holm. 18 title defenses in 3 weight classes. One of the greats of all time as far as female boxers are concerned. But as you mentioned, 39 is right around the corner. Aldana's last fight is a knockout of the year nominee. She absolutely, I mean, Joe Rogan referred to it as a perfect left, and it was exactly the right phrasing there. I think this fight's going to be a bit of a toss-up. And I'll tell you this, if there's one thing about Aldana, she's got great head movement until she gets in the pocket. The head movement stops in the pocket, and I think that's where one of those Holly Holm shins might just be coming, and it could be over just like that. But I said this to Jared, I have a feeling her corner, they saw that. They're going to talk about that, and they're going to warn her. If that head ain't moving in the pocket, you're dead meat. I suspect she'll make those right adjustments. She's got the power to win this fight, although she did have COVID, so I'd be a little concerned about the punching power. Not sure she could take out Holmes by knockout. I think this one probably goes the distance, unless Holmes just knocks her out.
Well, that's it. She could be in trouble with counterpunching because the other thing I noticed, like you said, it stops a little bit in the pocket. My first rule, I always start with defense. My first rule, if I'm training you, the first 3 things I'm going to say to you are chin down, shoulders up, elbows in. Chin down, shoulders up, elbows in. Keep them like that. And when you're swinging, your shoulder protects your jaw, right? She gets in the pocket when she starts swinging, that chin comes up. The head movement stops, the chin comes up. If Home can counterpunch, she can get this girl out of there. But I agree with you. It probably goes the distance, and it's probably a really close fight.
Yeah. Jace, you know what happens if when you're sparring with Jared, if you do lift your chin up, he punches you right in it. Chin down. Okay.
Well,
Let's
Put it down now.
It's an effective teaching tool. It's an effective teaching tool.
Punch me in the jaw.
Funny.
Punch me in the jaw 4 or 5 times and tell me to keep my chin down, and I'll never lift it again. I'm even on the podcast trying to keep it down still.
I've said, and I've said before, people get hit. It's the best teaching tool you're going to get. One of, I heard somebody we were training our pet, our little dog, Vicky. We have a min pin, about 25, 30-pound min pin named Vicky. She's black and brown, and she's the cutest little dog. But during the training, she started talking about hitting and what a great teaching tool this was. You will destroy your emotional relationship with the dog. Do not expect to be best friends if hitting is your teaching tool, but expect the dog to learn everything you're trying to teach. So the fact that I'm hitting you as your friend, you trust me, we have love for each other, that becomes a teaching tool like no other. You trust me and I can hit you to teach you stuff. And it doesn't feel like I'm, Joe, don't do that, Joe. And it doesn't get that feel like it's you're going to learn it. You're going to learn it. Even on the podcast, still got his chin tucked in. Joe knows what time it is.
Sometimes when I'm sad, Jared's like, keep your chin up, sport. And I'm like, hell no. I know what you're going to do. I'm not falling for that again.
Oh, that was great.
Yes.
All right.
Oh, that's funny.
Now we're going to end the show like we always do. And Jared, hit me with that flurry.
I had an epiphany between last week and this week. I had a plan that I was going to read my first letter to USA Boxing that didn't get answered for a while. And then I was going to read my last letter that got us the exemption request. And in between then, it all changed up. But the end of the last letter was, there's no way to quantify the positive effect of my work. Even more importantly, the negative effect of the lapse of my program can't be quantified either. And what I mean by that is you can't put numbers and prove what I'm doing here. I've been repeatedly saying that people that need the treatment the most are one of the largest demographics that we get at Scrub Scraps. And that's the Scrub Scraps program is the last chance at an intervention for those individuals and that we save lives. But I can't put a number on that. There's no way for me to really quantify that. So after a few months of not hearing back from USA Boxing, I had a girl that I trained with die. And so I wrote another letter, and this is a small excerpt from that letter. Unfortunately, since we shut the program down in September of 2017, we've lost 5 Scrub Scraps members. The latest was yesterday, a 35-year-old mother of 2. This number equals the 5 members lost between the years of 2004 and 2017 while the program was active. I do not believe this to be a coincidence. I really remembered this girl actually messaged me and asked me about Scrub Scraps once, and we're working on it. We're doing our best to get it back up and running. So when she passed, I thought there would be something I could do, and my desire to try to put some kind of value on this got me there. We lost 5 members in 14 years, and then we lost 5 more in 2.5. For the 14 years we were active, for the 2.5 we weren't. There it is. There's my number. That's what I'm looking for. That proves what I'm trying to say. And then I'm like, 5 and 5. It's just not, it doesn't seem like it works. And it hit me 2 or 3 days ago. It hit me that 5 and 5 is 10. So we've lost 10 Scrub Scraps members since 2004. There are 154 people who fought at Scrub Scraps. 2 of them are over the age of 44. 2 of them are under the age of 15. So if I use the ages of 15 and 44 as the parameters and say that we've lost 10 of 150 people, that's 6.7%. This is going to turn into a question, Joe. 6.7%. Now, I did a lot of research on the internet to try to find out the likelihood of somebody dying in the course of a given year. Joe, at your age, you're a 0.036% chance to die this year.
Jeez.
So I added up all of them between 15 and 44. And as it turns out, if you're an American and you're between the ages of 15 and 44, you have a 1.6% chance of dying this year. But if you're a member of Scrub Scraps, you have a 6.7% chance of dying this year. So, Joe, why are Scrub Scraps members more than 4 times as likely to die in any given year than the general population in America between the ages of 15 and 44?
It's obvious that people that are in need, and there's a lot of them out there, and that's what this thing's all about, you know? And I feel like, you know, in some cases, maybe they get there too late, which is why it would behoove us to get the message out now and to let more people be aware of this program and what it can do for you. Here you go. Anthony Baker, without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt, saved me. Only one fight, too. It's all it took. Sometimes that is all it takes. You know, I'll tell you what, Jace, you know, I've interviewed a lot of people with Scrub Scraps, and
love you, Anthony. Thank you.
I swear to God, Jace, every time you talk to one of these people, anybody connected with that organization, with Scrub Scraps, you will be in tears after 3 or 4 minutes, unless you're a sociopath. You'd have to be. It is. You know, I got to make Jared laugh. Jared and I have had so many crying sessions together where we talk about stuff, and a lot of the times it's this in particular. It's a life changer, you know, and it is. It's sad, and I feel like, you know, for people who are in dire straits like this, and I think that's why you see a spike. I think these are people who were at risk before. It's only gotten worse. They've probably done other things before they found Scrub Scraps. And, you know, you're at you might even see somebody having a positive result and still maybe it's too late. You know,
Anthony Baker's a perfect example. Like, I hope he doesn't mind me sharing it. But he was a drinker, a really, really heavy drinker, and didn't have those things. Damn, Anthony. Didn't have those things situated around him that drove him to be better, you know? And this was something like, I'm going to let you fight this guy, you know, because you can't stand somebody up and say, I'm going to let you fight addiction. Wrap their wrists up, put gloves on them, you know, put a helmet on them so they don't get too hurt, and make them feel powerful and say, you're going to go fight your addiction with pain pills. Didn't happen with him. You're going to fight your addiction to alcohol. It didn't happen to him. You're going to fight that guy over there. All right, I better stop drinking and popping pills at least for a week or two if I'm going to have a fist fight with somebody else who can fight. It was a drive to change some things where there was no motivation before. There was this stellar motivation brought about by something tangible that I can see. I can't put addiction on a table in front of me. But John, that you're going to fight next week, is tangible. The answer to why Scrub Scraps members are 4 times as likely to die is because a certain demographic is drawn out of the woodwork to participate in this thing. And the Scrub Scraps program is the last chance we have at an intervention for those people. And we're saving lives, because when I say 154, 6.7% 10 people, they're numbers to the general population, but to me, those numbers have names. To me, those are 6 overdoses, 3 suicides, and a car accident. Those are friends of mine. Sometimes we get there in time, as is the case with Anthony, and sometimes we don't. Man, thank you guys.
Thank you. You're doing a lot of good work there, and you need to keep it up.
I appreciate that, Jace.
Thank you for Anthony Baker for sharing his story in the comments.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. But that's going to end it for the show. Thank you guys for watching. This is Throwing Jabs brought to you by Clovercrest Media Group. Come join the Clovercrest Media Group, the CMG Podcast Network. Or you can find any of their great shows there, CMG, clovercrestmedia.com, or to find out. And if you are interested in making your own podcast, you got the options there. It says right there on the screen, $15 a month or full service for $50 a month. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Jared and Joe, for joining me. And enjoy the fights this weekend, and we hope to see you next time.